Hey everybody, we're back for another episode of The Journey Up, an Entrepreneur's Guide. I am your host, Bryce. This is my co-host, Brylen. We are co-brokers of Anabasis Realty here in Jacksonville, and we are having another fantastic guest on today, one of our great friends and longtime real estate venture guy, Gonzalo Corzo, G Money.
What's up, man?
What's up, man?
Dude, no one's called me G Money since like 6th grade. Hell yeah. That was my nickname.
Was it really?
In middle school.
How did that?
It's also our Wi-Fi password, isn't it?
Is it?
No, it's...
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yes,
I don't know if we should say that on air. Should we blank that out?
Nah, who cares? I mean, anybody, I would love for people to come to the office.
Yeah, exactly, right? Well, thanks for coming on the show today, brother. Super pumped to have you on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
And, obviously, we've been in contact with each other for a long time. We've, done some deals, done some business. Our office is right next to each other. And, I've been keeping in contact with you guys for a long time. It seems like, obviously, your business has changed a lot over the years. You
Absolutely.
Obviously have to go down different paths, and I think it's been really, really interesting to watch. But I really wanted to kind of take it back to the beginning, you know what I mean? Because I think it's really interesting that you never went to college, right? You went right into real estate.
College.
You didn't finish.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that at all. But obviously, our viewers are interested in your journey in entrepreneurship, and whether that started in real estate or not. Maybe it transitioned from something else. Let's start at the beginning. Where are you from? What was your childhood?
Yeah, childhood. So I was actually born in Lima, Peru.
Okay.
So I was born in Peru. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I moved to the U.S. when I was 4.
Okay.
So my family migrated here in 1999.
Okay.
And I turned 4 a couple months after we got here. And I lived in Miami until I was about 9.
Okay. So that was the first stop was Miami.
Yep. And then from there, my dad in Miami got into the restaurant industry.
Okay.
So my grandpa in Peru had restaurants, my dad's dad, and my dad, his intent wasn't really to get into the restaurant game when he came here, but
it's a tough game.
Yeah, and it just kind of naturally happened. And in Miami, he partnered up with some people and started a restaurant. And then when I turned 8 or 9, we moved to Sarasota, Florida.
Okay.
And my dad opened up the first Peruvian restaurant in Sarasota.
Wow.
And we moved when I was 9, and that's pretty much where I went to elementary school, middle school, and high school, Sarasota. Bradenton area.
It's a nice area.
Yeah.
We actually went there.
Would you go to Manatee?
No, I went to Southeast.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I know that area.
Yeah.
We had some friends in high school that went to Manatee.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
we made some trips down there.
Yeah. No, so I did IB in high school.
Uh-huh.
And so Southeast was the only high school that had that in Bradenton. So I did the IB program, and I did dual enrollment out of high school. So I was doing college. Those were a couple of the college years that I had was I was in high school. And then I went to, I did 1 year of community college after high school. I was in that, finishing my my final semester in college. I was getting an AA degree in, I was going to pursue criminal justice.
Okay.
I wanted to get into criminology and go into that space.
So that was your first real career field choice that you wanted to do. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I think I was always obsessed with FBI cop movies and just being
murder mysteries.
Yeah, like that stuff. And
you still watch any of that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then my uncle's a cop also, so I think there was some influence there. And I did a ride along with a cop twice.
That's actually cool. I've
Yeah.
never done that before.
No, it's awesome. And you can just go anywhere and just be like, hey, I want to go ride along. And have to do it. Yeah, it's
Do you
awesome.
apply for it? Or
Yeah. You have to fill out all this stuff. And it was awesome. I was 16 when I did it. And then my older brother, shout out to my older brother, Diego Corzo. He's the guy who basically got my whole family into real estate.
Okay.
And so he was, he did he went to FSU. So that's how I know a little bit about, the bars and the clubs out there. But he went to FSU. He's 5 years. Yep. Go Knowles. He's 5 years older than me. So he did that whole career thing. He went to GM, work at General Motors in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And then
was that real estate related? Okay.
No. So he was an IT software guy, and he got basically recruited in college. He was like top student. I don't know what it's called, like the summa cum laude thing, whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Laude or
yeah, whatever. Yeah. So he was like that guy, right? Graduated like top of his class, got recruited, had a job before he even graduated college, basically. And they flew him out there. And then a year and a half after that, he tells the whole family. He's like the dream, poster
the golden
child, right?
Yeah.
And especially as an immigrant, right? You come here as a family of immigrants. Like the goal is your kids get a great career. They get a great college degree. They get a great career, and that's what they do, right? Yeah. Year and a half into it, he's like, yo, I think I'm going to quit GM, and I'm getting my real estate license. I read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm going to get into all that. Yeah. And I was still in finishing up high school while I was
Did he just not like his job, or?
No, I think it was just he got the real estate bug. He got the real estate bug, and then he he got his real estate license because he wanted to start investing. Yeah. And so as he got his real estate license, he was, everybody working at GM, his colleagues were at that point where they were like, they just got a great job. They just moved to Austin, Texas, and now they're ready to buy a house. Yeah. Right. So he started helping all of his work buddies buy a house, and he's like, yeah, I'm making way more money. Yeah, way more. Helping them find houses, and it's way funner,
Wait, what was like your family's reaction whenever he mentioned to him? I know, like you said earlier, kind of like the dream is to come here, get an education, get a job. Was your family kind of like what the heck? Or
so Diego was always like, everybody just kind of trusted him. Yeah. He's actually the one that allowed me to drop out of college. Like when I told my parents I wanted to drop out of college to do this real estate thing, because he took me to an event, I got the bug, and I was like, all right, this makes sense. Yeah. My parents just like asked my brother, like, yo, what do we do? Like, should he drop out or not? Yeah. And my brother's like, dude, like, I'm doing this real estate thing, and my brother would crush it, so give him a shot, And so I convinced my parents, give me 6 months. I'm going to stop classes. I can pick them back up. Yeah, you know what I mean? Let me just take this semester off, and let me figure out this real estate stuff. Yeah. And so my brother was taking me to events. So luckily my brother like paved the way for me, and he's a realtor. So he took more of the realtor approach. He's with Keller Williams, and he took the team approach and all that. I went the wholesaling route. Yeah. Part of it was because I just didn't want to follow in my brother's footsteps. Yeah. Right. And I went to this like real estate event, and as soon as I got back from that real estate event, from the airport ride back home, it was my first ever event. Yeah. Right. Up to this point, I had knew nothing about real estate, self-employment, working for yourself, being your own boss, nothing. I was just like, you go to college, you whatever. Yeah. But my brother's paying for me to go to this trip. So screw it, I'm gonna go. Like, me and my brother are super close, and I was 18 at that event, and on the plane ride back, I was like, dude, I need to learn personal development. Like, I wasn't committed to dropping out just yet, but I knew that I wasn't gonna learn everything from just college. I also had to learn on the side. Yeah, of course. And then like after a week of learning on the side, I knew more about like money and wealth and everything than my parents and my family than anybody. I was like, dude, this is just a week. I read like 3 books, and like I'm teaching my dad stuff. Yeah. So I was like, all right, if this is what I've learned in a week, I'm going all in. Like, I'm dropping out of college, and I'm getting an internship. And so I went and worked for a real estate investor. Shout out to Pete Cook out in St. Augustine. Okay, he's in St. Aug. Okay. So he took me in, under his wing, and I worked for free for like a year and a half. Yeah. He owned a duplex in Villano. I lived in one side. He lived in the other. Oh, that's a sick location. I just worked for him for free. He gave me a place to crash, and I did whatever he needed, And
is that where you got introduced to wholesaling?
That's where I got, no. So I got introduced to wholesaling. So take it back. I land from the plane from this event. I learned that I needed to start learning about real estate. And on the plane ride, or on the car ride back to my house, there's a radio ad, Than Merrill, Fortune Builders. And it was like, I'm coming to Sarasota next weekend. I'm looking for some people to help me find real estate in Sarasota. And I was like, dude, this is meant to be. Like, I just went to this event.
Yeah.
And like now, as soon as I turn on the radio, there's this thing. So I immediately call as I'm on the, driving back. I call and I'm like, hey, I need 2 free tickets to like this 1 hour thing.
Yeah.
So I go to that thing, and that's where they start talking about wholesaling.
Yeah.
And they start talking about, or they have a free, or not a free, but it's a 2-day wholesale
Like
training
crash
course, and it's $500.
Okay.
And
you throw $500 out?
absolutely, hell yeah. Dude. Well, luckily, like my parents were always self-employed and they had restaurants, so I grew up in the restaurant industry. So I always had work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a choice; it was just like you have to work.
Yeah.
But my dad would pay me.
You can make $500 in the restaurant industry in like a day or two.
Waiting,
Absolutely, yeah. I
tables
was,
and
dude.
stuff
I was
like
by
that?
the 18. I was making like $500 a week.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because I'm just bussing tables, waiting tables
Yeah.
all weekend. I was just grinding all through high school. So that
Yeah.
gives me and my brother our
Your work
natural
ethic,
our
too.
work ethic, our communications, like just being a waiter.
Yeah.
From the time you're 12 is like just changes the game.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's how I grew up. Was being a waiter at like 11, 12
Yeah.
Dude,
years
I was in
old.
the restaurant industry, not to
Yeah.
cut you off, but from the time I could get a job up until I was like 21.
Yeah.
I get it.
Absolutely.
My
And it
first
just changes
job
you.
Was when I was 14, I got a job at a bait and tackle shop, bagging dead shrimp at 6 in the morning
Nice.
and getting stuff out of the
Yes.
live well for people going out on the boats in Amelia
Hell
Island.
yeah.
And that was like, for me, I mean, at 14 years old, waking up at 4:45 in the morning to go to work, it's like, yeah, but it instills that work ethic in
Absolutely.
you really
Absolutely.
early. And I think most people that are entrepreneurs like us have that grind early on in their life that they take in, to the later parts of life with them.
Yep. No, I agree. So I go to that Fortune Builders thing. They pitch their $50,000 product. I don't have $50,000, but
What was the product?
It was like a mentorship thing, and but I learned, that's where I really learned wholesaling, the breakdown of it. And my older brother and my dad were starting to buy rentals.
Okay.
So I was like, dude, I don't have to go to school to get licensed because I just left school.
Right.
And if I want to get licensed, I have to go back to school.
Yeah.
And I can just flip a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I can sell my dad and my brother an investment property, and I can make 10 grand off of them.
Yeah. Exactly.
That was like my mindset. My mindset was like, dude, if I could make money just flipping houses to my dad and my brother, why not?
Yeah.
And so that was like the bug that I got. And this was December of 2014. 3 days later, after this training, I go to another like mastermind networking event that I'm now a member of. Back then, I didn't qualify to be a member. I was just volunteering, working the event. So I go to this like mini mansion in Orlando. There's like 25 just multimillionaire studs hanging out, and I'm the crew. I'm working. I'm like washing dishes, doing whatever just to be around.
Just to be
guys.
around.
Just to hear
them,
it.
Yeah. And there I met Pete.
Okay.
And I was connecting with everyone.
Yeah.
So my goal was to go and shadow as many of these guys as I could. So I build a relationship there at the event, work it for free. I'm there on my own dime. And from there, I went and shadowed like 5 or 6 super successful dudes here in Florida.
Wait, how
it was
old were
awesome.
you? This was 2014?
I was 18.
18.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And,
were you kind of like juggling them, or was it different stints that you went with each of those 5 or 6 guys?
No, it was just a bunch of dudes were in a house and they were all like talking business, masterminding. This is what I'm doing that helps my business.
Gotcha.
And then from that weekend event, I made connections, and then I would just ask them, hey, I'm thinking about getting into real estate, thinking about getting into business. I don't know what to do. I'm thinking about dropping out of college. Can I go shadow you? And so I went and shadowed a bunch of real estate agents, a bunch of title companies.
Interesting.
And Pete, he's really more of a broker. At the time, he had a brokerage, and he had a real estate team. And then what intrigued me about Pete is that he had bought one of the wholesale programs and never did anything with it. And I was like, dude,
from that.
not from that Orlando one, but another guy, Sean Terry, Flip to Freedom. He's one of like the wholesale OGs. Because I've been learning this shit since 2014. So like back then, like it was
early
totally
stages.
different game. Yeah, it was
early
totally
stages.
different than it is now, right? And so there was only a couple people, right? Kent Clothier, Sean Terry, and that was pretty much it. And then there was like Fortune Builders and Rich Dad Poor Dad talking about wholesaling, right? And so Sean Terry had a program. Pete bought that program, never really did anything with it. And I was like, dude, I'll work it. I'll work for you for free. I'll drop out of college to go do this. And it's funny because Pete, out of everybody, the guy that I ended up working for, he was the only one that told me not to drop out of college.
Really?
Yeah. He was like, dude, college, I made all my connections in college.
I
college was like where I lived, you know, but he played football in college and all this. So it's like he had like college to him was like this crazy experience. And he was like, dude, I don't know if I would trade that ever. You know, everybody else was like, yeah, like you don't have to go. If you want to go, but you don't have to if this is the path that you're going to go.
I would definitely say it's more for experience in relationships than it is for actual education.
Correct.
For sure.
And so, yeah, man. So I go to work for Pete, and then about like 3 months into working for Pete, his mentor hits him up in a wholesaling fashion, and he's like, yo, they're based out of Georgia, and he's like, yo, we're going to start marketing in Jacksonville, Florida, and we need somebody around there. I know you're in St. Augustine. Can you help us do Jacksonville wholesale? And he was like, dude, I got this kid. And also, by the way, I convinced a buddy of mine that I was going to college with to drop out with me and do this with me.
Oh my gosh.
So me and my buddy are working for Pete for free, living in this duplex. We're just doing whatever he tells us to do, right? Go
Which
put
was
a bandit
probably
sign.
a really nice place, though.
Oh, it was awesome, dude. I mean, we were like walking distance from the water.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
You were 18? Both
I was 18, 19, yeah.
Like
I turned
baller.
9 at this point. So December's my birthday. So that's where I turned 19 was when I first met Pete. Was at that event. And so his mentor hits him up and he's like, yo, we're breaking into Jacksonville. We need somebody. And Pete's like, yo, I got these 2 19-year-old kids that are dying to get into this wholesale game. And so we just kind of like bridged that gap, and then we started doing Jacksonville wholesale. So I was so my first job was dispositions for a wholesale company.
Gotcha.
So I was finding buyers and trying to sell their deals.
Okay.
And then what that turned into was me learning. As dispo, you get the buyer feedback, you know, and as a wholesaler, like your dispo controls your wholesale company in all reality, right? And like if you can sell deals at 80% of ARV, then that changes the way you can lock up deals.
Stuff,
You can only sell deals at 60%, or if you only have buyers in this market, then you can't do deals in this market, right? Or whatever, right? So your dispo controls your acquisitions.
For sure.
And so it turned into me helping them now do like underwriting for their acquisitions, right? Because I was like, hey, it's my job to sell these. Like I'm selling, 5 out of 10 because they're just learning the Jacksonville market also, right? And you guys know, like the Jacksonville market, like you kind of got to know, like, okay,
it's very
this is a
pockety.
JWB house. We can't use that. This is, this pocket is totally different than this pocket, so we can't really use those comps. But if you don't know, you're like, dude, this house is worth 200, So let's lock it up for 100. And it's like, nothing in that neighborhood is. Long story short, it turned into me doing comps, and then it turned into me doing field work because I always I needed to make more money, where I was getting paid commission for selling the houses, and then they were paying this guy to go take pictures. I was like, dude, I'll go take the pictures. I'm out in the field anyway. So I was getting paid like $50 to go do inspections and sell houses.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
what was that like acquisition process looking like for you back then, like in the early stages? Because obviously the game has changed so much, like over the years.
Back then it was
just knocking doors. Back
no,
then,
it was all direct mail.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it was all direct mail. Direct mail, and then we were using what's the name of the program? It was a program, Pat Live.
Okay.
So Pat Live so Pat Live was like one of the first. It's like an answering service.
Okay.
So you would put a specific phone number on your mailers, and Pat Live would answer the calls, and then submit the leads to you.
Okay.
Basically.
Gotcha.
But that was like more like I didn't really play a role in that in the beginning. I really didn't do any acquisitions until I started my own company.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just mainly dispositions, but I had a lot of deal knowledge, right? Dispo, in my opinion, I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
Dispo first.
You got to learn the sales
You learn
side.
the buyers. You learn how to think like an investor. You think you know how to think like an investor until you start pitching deals.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? Then you're pitching deals. You're like, yeah, dude, you can't use this. You can't do that. City's going to say no to that, whatever, right?
Yeah,
and you're like,
exactly.
oh, okay. And then 2017, so I basically outgrew that where I was at, where I was working. Basically, I outgrew that and wanted to start my own thing.
How long were you there for?
I was there, so started working with them in end of 2015, beginning of 2016, and then I started Cash Geeks in 2017.
2017.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was there about almost 2 years.
Okay.
And I was super involved with the local community. They didn't really have a buyer's list that they gave me. It was just like, here's deals, go find buyers. So like all these buyers were mine. You know what I mean? Like the buyers had no idea who they were. It was just like, I know G sells houses.
Deals.
Right?
He does. Yeah.
And I always took it very serious. Like I never wanted to be like, early on, like I read E-Myth, right, by Michael Gerber. And I always had just big dreams and aspirations. And I wanted to not just be like a side hustle. Right. I wanted it to be like, I just envisioned one day I'm going to have employees and a team and do multiple deals and blah, 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 right? And so early on, I became a corporate sponsor of the Jax RIA, right? This was like 2015. I became a corporate sponsor of the Jax RIA, and I started getting super involved, and I started helping all the events. And I got on the board in 2015. In 2016, I was also on the board. In 2017, I became vice president of the RIA. Now, it was just because I wanted to be involved. Like, real estate was my life, right? So all my family, friends, and everything was in Sarasota. So I was up in St. Augustine, Jacksonville now, so I know nobody.
Yeah.
So all I do all day, every day is like during the day, I'm making calls trying to sell deals. At night, I'm going to a networking event.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I'm grinding.
You're grinding.
And so that's kind of how I made a name for myself locally, was just being everywhere. Like I said, like, dude, I got started before Facebook groups were a thing.
Yeah,
There was no Facebook groups.
Yeah, and you were young. You were like 20.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most 20-year-olds aren't doing that.
And so the only way to really build something was like networking.
Right.
There was no podcast. There was no Facebook groups. There was no any of that.
Yeah.
Social media was like just picking up as far as like real estate influencers. You know what I mean? And so so basically when I was working for that wholesale company, I made a connection with Pete. Pete connected me with this mini fund out of the Netherlands.
Interesting.
And they were looking for like turnkey products.
Yeah.
And as a wholesaler, you don't
Get
always
a lot.
find turnkey products, right?
You get a lot of that.
And my wife, so she was my girlfriend at the time. She was licensed. I made her get her license. I also convinced her to drop out of college and get your real estate license, and I'll take care of you forever, right? Yeah. And so I have her looking on the MLS for more turnkey stuff.
Yeah.
And she finds a nice turnkey rental, fully renovated. Dude, this was end of 2016, beginning of 2017, before I started Cash Geeks. And we go and look at a property, and it's Dom. So
Okay.
Dom was selling the, shout out to Dom Felix also. Dom was selling his rentals.
Okay.
He was selling his portfolio. And so I like flipped that house to this fund. And then he was like, yo, I got some other ones if you're interested also. And I was like, dude, we're looking to buy more. Like, they made me like the registered agent on the LLC, and I just had like buying power for $1 million.
Okay.
And in 2016 in Jacksonville, $1 million was a lot.
Yeah, you
right?
could buy a good bit of stuff.
And so, dude, we were buying turnkey houses for 40, 50 grand.
No
Dude,
way.
I swear,
That's
crazy.
crazy.
Bro. And so I ended up like buying like 5 houses off of Dom and flipping them to this fund over the course of like 6 months. And through that was where me and Dom like
hit it off,
really became boys. And I was kind of explaining what I was doing. He was more of like landlord investor type, never really messed with wholesaling, didn't really know what that was. Tried to buy a house from a wholesaler once, still didn't know what it really was. And so we just kind of joined forces. And that's when I was like about to break off on my own. And, you know, I'm 20, 21, so, like, I'm still scared to break off. Like, I want to break off on my own,
scary
but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Steady income, blah, 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 blah. And so it was just perfect timing. Me and Dom hit it off, and Dom was like, dude, I'm about – because he was in the preservation business, property preservation. So with banks, when they, foreclose on a house, they hire property preservation companies and they go change the locks, cut out the mold, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Cut the grass. And so, he crushed it since like 2008 to like 2014, 2015. Like there was a crazy wave of foreclosures, right?
Yeah,
and then it just started dying. And then like bigger companies got into the property preservation space, and it just kind of forced out the little guys. So Dom was kind of getting forced out of that industry. So he was like looking for the next thing. As he was, that's why he was selling his rentals.
Yeah.
So he was like, dude, I have like ton of business experience. I've, built up a company doing $5 million a year. I had like 30 employees at like my prime, and I'm dying to get into this real estate wholesale stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just kind of joined forces, and I was like, dude, I have buyers. I have like deal knowledge. I know Jacksonville like the back of my hand. I'm the vice president of the RIA. You have all this business stuff. Like, let's just partner up.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. So me and Dom partnered up, and we didn't like officially like sign any paperwork until like our first couple deals. Figured out how we both like to work, and that's what we did, dude. And together, like we were just laser focused on building a massive wholesale company. Yeah. All we wanted to do was just wholesale. We wanted to become honestly one of the biggest in the nation, and to just be able to bring in a ton of cash. Yeah. Right. That was our goal. And we did that. And then we got the bug of let's do more next year. Yeah. And then let's do more next year. Right. Exactly. And we our prime, man, we were, and I'll never forget, man, like we closed like our first 2 deals. Right.
Yeah. What were your first couple deals in Cash Geeks?
Dude, so our first deal we made $2,000
a piece.
No, probably
total. Yeah, total. And we were doing direct mail.
Yeah.
Right. Second deal, we made $16,000.
Okay.
And this was all within 30 days of us being in business together.
Wow. Okay.
And it was because I've been wholesaling for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So like as soon as we got the leads, I was 21.
Yeah. This is 2017.
2017. Yeah. Yep. So we joined forces in June of 2017, started sending mailers, closed our first couple of deals like July, August. And I'll never forget, man, that was the first time like this money was mine. Yeah. Right? Like before it was like, all right, the company makes that money and then I get my commission from it. Right. Yeah. And I was like, now this is like mine. Right. Yeah. And then Dom was like, all right, we made some money. Let's go hire people. I was like, oh shit, like, dude, like that was like the first time I'm like, I can actually make like $10,000, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah, I can pad my pocket a little bit.
And
so you just reinvested the entire thing?
We just went hire. Yep, we just started hiring, and and that was my biggest like value add from Dom was just like
the scalability.
He as an established dude with a family with bills, like you can't treat it as a side hustle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a blessing for me because I was like 21, like I was ready to go blow that money.
Yeah. That's a lot of $10,000's a lot of money for 21.
Dude, absolutely. And so like we were that was like the way that Dom and I worked really well together. Is like he was like the scaler, the employees guy, the systems and all that, and I'm the real estate guy. I'm the connector. I'm the deal flow guy, issues, title companies, acquisitions, buyers, like that's my expertise. And obviously we help each other out in our expertises.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that was our journey, man. And we did that up until, together up until this year. And in 2020, COVID hit. That was scary. Because all of our
that is the craziest market shift I think probably next to 2008 within our lifetime for sure. Just because it's so like out of left field. How would you say that changed your business?
So it really didn't change my business. It just made my business easier. Okay. So in 2020, it got scary for like 3 months. Yeah. Right.
Probably like February to March, April, like the beginning.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. And that was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like we have all these employees, none of us can come into the office, and we have to figure out how to work, right? So we had Zoom. We bought everybody. Like if you had the ability to work from home on your own, awesome. If you don't, we're gonna buy company stuff and we're gonna provide it to you. Everybody had desk phones at their houses. We had Warren, who was our he was like our whatever you need, Warren can do. Okay, let me just put it. Our everything guy in the
Call
office.
Warren.
Yeah, so it's like, dude, I need to evict a squatter, and then I need you to change the locks at this house, and then I need you to hire this guy, and then I need you to fire this guy.
Yeah.
Like Warren was everything, right?
That's so funny.
Yeah, and so Warren like took basically like workstation goodie bags to everybody's house, and that's how we were working for like a month, and then this thing came out where like real estate was deemed essential.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, hell yeah. Like, we're essential. Like, we printed off these things to, like, keep in our cars in case something happened, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, everybody back in the office. We had a temperature gun. And so that's how it was, dude. And we were like...
You're gunning people's temperatures on the way in
absolutely.
every day?
Yeah.
I was actually working in a restaurant during that time, and they would put a gun, like a little like temperature gun.
Yeah, dude, I still have the temperature gun. Yeah,
it was the weirdest thing.
Yeah,
So
you
funny.
would put it and
they keep track of like
correct.
your like whatever like your degrees were or whatever it is, your body temperature.
Correct. So we had to do that because when you have employees, at that point we had about 12 employees already. So it was like, it was serious, right? Like now it's not like we have 2 people where it's like, you know, like when you have 12 employees, like now people will like sue you. Yeah. You know, it's like, oh, dude, I caught COVID and like died. It's like, oh crap, we're going after the company that they're working for because they didn't take the necessary proper measures to what, you know what I mean? So that was like what I learned from Dom, right? Like Dom is like, no, like there's certain structure and way. If we're building a corporation, we have to do it the right way. Yeah. And so it got super scary for like 3-4 months, and then out of nowhere, hedge funds started buying. Yeah. Right. End of 2020, the hedge funds just started to pick up, and luckily we were already connected with one hedge fund. Yeah. And before COVID, we were already kind of selling to one hedge fund because they were willing to work through wholesalers, but they didn't really know we were wholesaling it. We worked through a realtor, and that realtor was selling it to this hedge fund, and then we would double close through this realtor, and it was weird. Yeah. Right? And then like end of 2020, the hedge funds just opened up the floodgates, and all of them were now buying from hedge fund or from wholesalers and all this. And
they didn't care; it was just snatch and grab.
Correct. And so that is where we took off. Yeah. That is where it was like, holy crap, we're seeing these buyers are offering, you know, if Zillow is 180, they're offering 185, right? And so we just rode that wave. Yeah. And we were like, let's double down and go all in. Because we don't know when this is going to stop. When it's going to, and let's take advantage of it. So that's what we did. And we just kept reinvesting, kept hiring. And as we were hiring, we also wanted to, you know, treat it like a true corporation, dude. So like in my prime, we had a CFO, you know, like a freaking HR person, a marketing person. Yeah. And so we were building kind of like the C-suite management. Yeah. Right. Those roles are expensive. Yes, right?
For sure.
And so it was awesome. And that's when we brought, once the hedge funds like really started buying, that's when we brought Hayden on to run like our JVs. Right. Yeah. And Hayden was like an independent wholesaler. And we brought him on because he had some hedge fund connections that we didn't have. Yeah. Because he had been flipping for like before wholesaling. He was more of a flipper. Yeah, he was flipping. So properties. He had direct experience with hedge funds that wholesalers didn't have because they were just buying on the market before 2020. Yeah, exactly. They were buying on the market. So like Hayden had been flipping houses to hedge funds, not intentionally. He would just buy a house, renovate it, and the hedge fund would put in an offer. And so like he had hedge fund connections that we didn't have. And we had like the whole infrastructure that he didn't have. And I was like, dude, let's go after, because I had always done JV deals, right? Just being a local guy, going to all these events, teaching classes. Like it was always something I did on the side, right? And I was like, Hayden has a similar personality to me. He can teach classes. He can be that guy. And most wholesalers don't know about these hedge funds. Yeah. So let's bridge the gap between other wholesalers and our hedge funds. And that was Hayden's role. Okay. So Hayden ran like the whole JV department. And that's kind of when we focus a little bit more on like local outreach, being the guys locally on like, if you need a deal moved, you call us. Yeah. We have all the hedge fund connections. We've been slinging, you know, properties in the hood for the past 5 years, whatever. Like that's when we kind of took more of a focus. Right. And so it was awesome. And then interest rates went up.
Yeah.
Right. The first rate hike, that's when things shook up. And the problem was none of the hedge funds stopped at that time. I wish they would have stopped at that time. That would have gave us clarity.
Yeah.
Right. But like what's worse is hit me up next week and see how we're offering or what we're buying next week. Right now we're not buying because of this interest rates, but we're going to turn on next week and next week submit all the deals. And we were selling to like 10 different funds at that time. So like everybody was different, right? Some of them would be like, hey, we're pause buying today, send tomorrow because the higher up is meeting on what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then another one would be like, hey, we're still buying, but our buy box is no longer, 3 1s and 1950s. It's now 3 1.5s and 1965 and newer. Right. It's like, okay, so now we have to change our marketing, right? Because like all of our marketing is directly towards
those
that
houses,
and that buy box. So now that buy box changed. Now I got to change my marketing. And so change my market. So it was all this limbo.
Chasing your tail.
Correct.
Basically.
Exactly. And so like then and the problem was like every once in a while a deal would work. That would give us hope.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they took this one. All right, cool. Like we just got to find the better product. And then the next rate hike would come and then same thing would happen. And they'd be like, okay, we're pausing for this week. But these people would be like, okay, we're changing our buy box. Now it's not 1965. Now it's 1980 and newer. It's like, shit, we just bought marketing for this. And so like, we were just chasing that. And then, we had like 26 employees in-house and like 30 cold callers overseas.
Yeah.
We were doing 300 deals a year after year. And then now all of our eggs, though, were in this hedge fund basket.
Yeah.
And we were just waiting and shit wasn't turning around and the occasional deal would, happen or whatever. And then October came and basically we just had to make tough decisions of like, we either pivot hard or we ride it out. And if we ride it out, we have like 3-4 months left of expenses.
Yep.
If we pivot hard, we have to fire a ton of people.
Yeah.
And if we wait it out, we'll still have this awesome team. And if things change, like we'll be thankful that we waited it out.
Yeah.
If things don't work out and we wait it out, then we're closing up shop in 4 months.
Yeah.
That's a stressful decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is October. I'm having my first baby in December.
Yeah. You're not taking that risk.
Correct.
To close up shop.
Correct. And so I'm looking at my at the business bank account. I was like, holy shit, this is all we have left.
Yeah.
We barely bought rentals. We barely did anything else. It was just all of my money was in this business. And so like we're looking at the bank account. I was like, dude, that's all we have left. Like, shit, we can either wait it out or if everything goes to shit, this is all the money that I have left for my the rest of my life. Right? To like start over.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, shit, let's make the tough call. And so we did. And then after that is really when the conversation started happening of like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, do we just keep waiting it out and seeing what's going to happen? Do we just wholesale a little bit? Like, should we pivot? And through those conversations is really where we decided to just part ways.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't really.
You and Dom?
Dom and I.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. We didn't really we helped each other to scale and grow a machine, and I don't necessarily want that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was kind of like where we both decided where it was like, why don't we just part ways?
Yeah.
And just kind of like through what we learned, we can work a lot smarter now. Right. We have way more connections. We know way more about real estate. We have done, you've
done
literally over 1,000 deals under our belt. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, we can go make money a lot easier. If it's about making money, then this way is not it.
Right.
You know what I mean? This way is about having employees and scaling and doing 1,000 deals a year.
Yeah.
But we only make money once we start doing 1,000 deals a year.
Yeah. Right.
So when it's year 5, when we're doing 500 deals a year, we're barely making money. 600, we start making money. You know what I mean? So like this model.
What would you have done differently?
Yeah, because I've heard before, obviously, that there's 2 things that kill a company. It's not enough growth and too much growth.
That's what it was.
So
yeah,
it was too much growth. Do you think it would slow down a little bit, or
absolutely? Yeah. I think. Well, what I would do different is I would let the P&L tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was. It was like the P&L is telling me like we're barely making money. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Because like in the beginning, most businesses don't make money.
No,
and like,
of course not.
and like
At least for the first
Amazon,
year.
correct. So, but you just keep selling that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, Amazon's the biggest company in the world,
Uh-huh.
and they're still losing money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's something to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, like let's just, we
No,
need to
I
make money.
pay my bills.
Correct, yeah. But like, and there was also like at the same time, like all these social media wholesaler dudes were coming up,
Yeah.
and like we're smarter than
Pace
them.
more
Yeah.
We have a
and
better
all these
business
other
than
guys.
them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna let them do more deals than me. I'm smarter than them, right? So it was
Yeah.
all ego and all this,
Getting a little cocky.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a little cocky, like, and so that is what was different this time around,
Yeah.
and why we decided to part ways is multiple things, but really it was like we each kind of wanted to be our own man at this point,
Yeah.
right? And like, we don't. If we're gonna make the same amount of money we were making doing 300 deals a year,
Yeah.
then we only need to do 50.
Right.
It's like, we don't need each other to do 50 deals.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so it was like, you can go do 50 on your own. I can do 50 on my own. We'll make the same amount of money and we'll all be fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Less headache, less
And
stress.
so that's kind of what happened.
I still think it is kind of cool how you said earlier, 2020, like the first part of that year, you thought, okay, everything's going to shit. I don't know what's going to happen, what's going on. But then on the back end, you had probably like one of the best
Absolutely.
6
dude.
months of your career.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
And it's funny. I was just, I was at a mastermind event this past weekend, and one of the speakers, it's funny because he talked about you can't connect the dots until after it's happened.
Yeah.
Right. And this is something that Steve Jobs said, right? And he's like, you don't realize what needed to happen in your life until after it happens. It's
Yeah.
hard to connect the dots. You might be in a dot right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We might be in a dot, like we don't know.
You don't know.
Right? But it's like, oh, dude, when I did that podcast with anabasis, that's when this happened. And so like, but you can't connect the dots while it's happening.
Yeah.
You can't connect it into the future. You can only do it looking back.
Yeah.
And so like, when you're like freaking out and the world is falling apart, you don't know, but that could be a dot.
That's a dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a dot that might connect later.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And looking back, that absolutely was what that was for
Yeah.
everybody in the real estate game,
Yeah,
right? It's like,
everybody,
dude,
yeah.
we all thought everything was falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you couldn't get a loan, you couldn't do a closing, like
You couldn't
you
get,
couldn't do anything.
yeah. you
And
throw
then out of
anything at the wall
nowhere,
and stick.
interest rates were the lowest they've ever been ever,
Uh-huh.
and like it just changed the game. And
Yeah.
that's what made all the hedge funds get in the game.
Uh-huh.
Was they could basically borrow money at like nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
And go buy real estate.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's like, let's go buy everything.
I remember
right?
back
yeah.
then, I mean, you could throw any deal at the wall and it would stick. People were, pushing
push your
ARVs,
ARV up.
Dude, it's
You
crazy.
could do anything
crazy.
really. So I think it's interesting that, it changed so much.
Yeah.
And like you said about the dots, like, you never know where your next deal is going to come from. That's why we have so many different marketing channels, and you never know what door is going to open because of, like you said, being on a podcast like this
Absolutely.
or whatever the situation may
Absolutely.
be. It may
Yeah.
lead you to something that you're never expecting. Because I mean, even starting this company, that wasn't in my plans. It just kind of fell into my lap. Kind of the same with you and Dom. So
Yeah.
I think that's very, very, very interesting. But so after that whole game changed and you guys separate ways and you made that pivot, what kind of changes have you implemented into the wholesale game, into how you're operating now?
So I would say the biggest thing was figuring out what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like this was this year, January, we started having those talks.
Uh-huh.
We officially parted ways January 31st.
Uh-huh.
So February 1, I'm now my own man,
Uh-huh.
right? I don't know what the hell to do. What do I do? Is the market good? This is February, so it's still weird.
It was a
right.
weird
We don't
time,
have
yeah.
any data yet.
Mhm.
All the data that we have was the worst quarter I've had in the past 5 years of business.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
That's the data that I have,
Mm-hmm.
along with everybody in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what to do. I got to keep the team rolling while at the same time I have to figure out, like, what do I do with my life?
Mhm.
Right? Like,
You got a 1-year-old at home too at this time, right?
no, he just turned 1, but I had a baby.
You got a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had,
Newborn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
newborn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot
dude,
of
he
stuff
was,
going
he was
on.
3 months old.
Yeah.
2 months old, right? And so there's also like an identity crisis also of like, I've always been, I've always walked into the office. I have 30 employees, like we're cranking. I look up at the TV. We got 3 mil on the board. We got 100 deals in the pipe. Like, hell yeah, you know? And then now I walk in and we have 3 employees, 2 deals just fell apart, $50K up on the board. And it's like, holy shit, like what's going on? Like you kind of got to
crushes your spirit a little bit.
Absolutely, man. And you're like figuring out like what to do. You have whatever, all the money that I have left, right? It's like, now what do I do? Do I dump a ton in marketing? Do I rebuild that back up? Do I not? Whatever.
What'd you end up doing?
So I ended up basically rebuilding the marketing side a little bit. Hired cold callers again, sticking to the wholesaling. Right. And so that's my immediate thing was like, let me just keep wholesaling. Right. And really what it's turned into is, if I want to stay lean and mean, I have to try to maximize every deal, and I have to keep my expenses low. And so I've always been able to buy houses from my network. Right. That's something that, I don't take for granted, and I have put in the work. Right. Like if somebody said, hey, I'm moving to Jacksonville and I want to start wholesaling, what should I do? I would not tell them to do the same thing that I'm now doing. Right. Like for the past 6-7 years, you've
done the groundwork.
I've done the groundwork. I like people talk about me and I don't even know they're talking about me, because they're not really me, just Cash Geeks, right? They're talking about Cash Geeks. Oh yeah, Cash Geeks is a wholesale company. If you have a deal and you can't sell in Jacksonville, like call Cash Geeks.
Anytime I think of wholesale, I think Cash Geeks.
Correct. Exactly.
That's just one of those things.
And so like, I don't take that for granted. But I never leaned into that. It was just always a thing. But now when I want to keep expenses low, I got to put in a little bit more sweat equity. And where am I going to put in my sweat equity is in my deal sourcing. So in, I want to say October of this year, we completely turned off all marketing. Because in, I want to say August, July, August, we were, so Hayden and I have been, flipping houses on the side. Really, it was Hayden. Hayden was like, yo, back in end of 2020, he was like, yeah, I'll join the team, but I still get to flip houses on the side. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Right. And that dude made just as much money, if not more, flipping houses on the side than working like full time at Cash Geeks. That was 2020, 2021. So 2022, we kind of incorporated some flips with Hayden in the company. And then, so when I decided this year to like really go heavy in either figuring out this wholesale thing or flipping houses, that's when me and Hayden partnered up. So Hayden came on board as a partner, Cash Geeks, this year. And the goal for that is just to leverage our network. Leverage buying houses through our sphere of influence, whether it's realtors that know us, wholesalers that know us, other flippers that know us, right? Sometimes a flipper might buy a good deal and be like, yo, let me call Cash Geeks and see they can just pay me a quick, 20 grand on top of this and I'll move on, right? If they can sell it for me, right? We now have some of the hedge funds that we were selling properties to, they hit us up and they're like, yo, can you guys sell it? Like, we bought this house in Jacksonville, we don't want it. Like, can you guys flip it for us, right? So we kind of became those guys, and it's always happened on the side, and now I'm leaning into it. So like now, like if you see any of my social media, like now it's all about like, yo, I'm buying houses. If you got something, deals, send me deals. Like that's right. And it's working. Right. And so like now all we're doing is taking other wholesalers' deals, and we're either JVing with them and selling them to our buyers list, or we are buying it and flipping it. Okay. So that's kind of where we've pivoted, and that's where my focus is. So now it's new challenges, right? From wholesaling to like buying houses, and now you got to worry about money, debt service payments, rehab projects, all that. And it's totally different world, right? And like 2022, we were flipping, but we were doing maybe 1 or 2 at a time. It's totally different when you have like 6-8 houses on the books that you're, navigating.
Managing.
Exactly. And so it's coming with new challenges, but we're pumped. We're excited about it.
You're learning.
And we're learning, right? And so
what
that's
some of the new challenges would you say you're looking at? Because I would say some of the challenges that we face a lot in flipping and managing property is obviously with contractors. With expectations as well. You think you underwrite a deal down to the T, and then you get into the property and you find out reality may
Absolutely.
be different than what you really expected.
Yep.
Unforeseen expenses show their face.
Yep.
How have you kind of navigated those new challenges investing versus
So
wholesaling?
we're having all of the above.
Uh-huh.
I would say our biggest challenge is Hayden and I are both drivers, and we're both like visionary types, and we're like, and this is something that like Dom added great value, was like, he was like hey, before we buy this house, we need to have this, we need to do this, we need to do that.
Uh-huh.
And he just kept that aligned, right?
Yeah.
And like now, since we've been wholesaling and flipping, like we know what a good deal is, so we're ready to buy it.
Yeah.
But we don't have
You
any.
see a good deal, you jump.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then like
You don't have
comes
guy
the
that-
closing day,
Uh-huh.
and it's like, oh shit, we don't have the money for it.
Uh-huh.
Because like, were you gonna call the private money? Like I was
Right.
gonna call the private money lender. Like
Yeah.
we thought we had the money because we checked the private money account and we had the money, but we forgot like that money was already allocated to the
something else.
rehabs on these houses.
Yeah.
But you don't think about that because
Yeah.
we don't have any like Excel formulas showing that or anything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, private money says 200K. We got this deal for 150K. We have the money to buy it,
Uh-huh.
right? But that closing doesn't happen for 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And then meanwhile, we have rehab projects, so the private money account is getting depleted.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, all right, closing, let's go. It's like, oh crap, there's only 40 grand left in the private money account because that's in all these other deals, and we have to close on this tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we got to go, call some buddies. Yo, I need 150 grand like today.
Yeah, today.
Luckily, we're connected. We, you know what I mean? We're blessed. But it's like, that's really our thing. Like, dude, we have this house right now where I've owned it for a week. I still don't have power
Insurance.
on. I don't have insurance. I don't have a scope of work for it. I don't
Been
have
out
anything,
before.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's figuring out that. We also like, we're very conservative buyers, but we're solid buyers. And so like, if I make you an offer, I'll be straight up. Like, it's probably not going to be your best offer, but it will be the guaranteed offer, and I can close tomorrow, and I'll deal with whatever headache you have to deal with, because I've been wholesaling for 5 years, 7 years now. I know all
Any
the deals. I
situation,
can
yeah.
I can help navigate you through this, through the squatter, through the tenant, through this, through the probate, whatever, right? And so I never get emotional about a deal because I just know the game. Like,
Yeah.
I've been in it from the other end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's awesome going to buy houses from other wholesalers because I know it, right? And so like I don't sell you hard. Like,
Yeah.
my offer is going to be probably not your best offer,
Yeah.
but if your buyer falls through the day of closing, call me and I will still buy it at that number that same day.
That's
Right.
Sunday.
Right? Like, that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so it happens, right? We'll get a call same day, buyer fell through, I need to buy the house. So like, at that point I got to scramble, I got to figure it out, I got to do
Yeah.
whatever, right? And so that's been, I would say, like, the biggest lessons is we're failing, or not failing, we're messing up on just not being structured, not
Yeah.
being organized on the flipping. And we didn't realize that until we're like 6-7 projects in.
Yeah.
You know, when you're buying your first 2-3 houses, it's not that big of a deal
Yeah.
because you can still manage it,
Uh-huh.
right?
You've
So
got
that-
the time.
Correct, exactly.
But
You
when
have
you're
the
managing
time,
6 to 8 projects,
exactly,
you lose track.
or you've raised enough private money that when you're juggling 2 or 3 flips at the time, you don't have a money issue,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, now, you know, I'm getting deals and I'm putting in offers, and the problem is, like, most of our offers, you guys know, like, most of your offer doesn't happen when you're trying to buy the house, right? Like, you put in the offer, you're ready to buy that house at that moment,
Uh-huh.
but then they don't take the offer, or they're countering or whatever, and then you actually get the house 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so in that meantime, we've moved on, we've bought something else, we're focused on something else.
Yeah.
And then, like, out of nowhere, you get a call. It's like, hey, is your offer at 130 still good? They're like, oh,
Yeah.
crap, like, it is. I don't want to say no to the opportunity, but now I have to scramble and
Yeah,
figure
you have
everything
to
else
pivot
out.
and find it
And when you're
somewhere
doing 2 or 3, like, you can use the same contractors on those. But now you're doing 5-6 projects, like, you can't use the same contractors on that. So now we have
Right.
to build new relationships,
relationships,
and figure out that. And that's a whole nother, you know, as
Yeah.
you were saying, like, expectations on the flips. Like, I bought a house where, like, the panel was great. Whole thing has cloth wiring.
Yep.
Whole thing has to be rewired. Just little things like that,
Little
right?
things, yeah.
And so it's been fun,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
Learning all these things and trying to put systems in place for that,
Uh-huh.
right? Luckily, we have great team members, and so now we're like promoting We've hired more staff so that the staff that has been with us for years can now elevate and work on systems, processes with us, for us, and have more of a managerial approach to it. But that's what we found is like, if Hayden and I are going to be doing a lot of the buying and flipping, like wholesaling, I can make you a buy decision in 30 seconds, right? Because worst case, I can back out of it, right?
Exactly.
Flipping and business to business, now it's different.
Yeah.
Now, if I put in an offer on business to business, this is a wholesaler. My word is my bond now, right? Like my word is my reputation. So if I say, hey, I'm good for this deal, and then they take it, and now I'm no longer good, that's their thought the next time they send me a deal, right? So with business to business, I have to make sure, number one, I don't ruin any relationships.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, like some of those things are going to be out of my control, but till this day, you know, like we've still honored everything we've said. Right. But so that's one thing. So that causes me to be I have to be on it with my offer. And so now that means that I have to, and if I'm actually going to buy the house, I can't just willy-nilly throw a number and just be like, yeah, I'll buy it for this and that's it, right? Wholesale is totally different, right? Wholesale, I'll lock it up for 120. We'll figure it out later, right?
With if flipping, we need to get a reduction, we'll get a reduction.
Exactly.
If we need to do this,
flipping and your business to business, totally different game.
Yeah.
So now I need to like pencil in my scope of work, go walk the house, make sure I'm not missing anything, right?
Yeah.
Go look at comps.
You start actually like crawling underneath that.
Correct. You start actually like
you're
buying tools,
you're like looking at foundations
and
like you said, buying tools, getting screwdrivers, opening shit up, looking at wiring yourself.
Like you never cared about that. You know what I mean? When you're wholesaling, you don't care.
You look at it, you're like, oh, I've done enough deals in my life. That's a $65,000 rehab, right at the offer.
Correct. Exactly. And so that I would say is the fun thing, right? It's the new challenge. But it's like buying decisions, we can't delegate that, you know, at least, especially not this early.
Yeah.
Right? Like we can't delegate making a buy decision because every deal is different and every deal is like, okay, if I use private money on this deal versus hard money on it, changes the numbers. Right? And so it's like, well, how much private money do we have? Are we going to have, like, is this already committed to a house? Do we have it? So if we do have it, then I can change, I can remove points on this and I can, right? And so now that's,
if it's hard money, 2 and 12 or whatever.
Exactly. So that changes the deal.
It's eaten
right?
into it
and so
extremely.
And so like the buy decisions is what takes up time.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at houses, we don't want to just be those guys that are just putting in offers.
For sure.
And then once your offer gets accepted, it's like, well, we still got to walk it. We still got to, you know what I mean? It's like, no, I want my offer to be like solid, ready to go. And I want it to be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So so
you're doing all of that research, due diligence, and everything up front before
we're putting in zero
an offer in front of somebody.
If it's wholesaler, if it's to a realtor, they're more inclined to give us a DD. So I can be a little more quicker.
How many of your deals are actually getting a due diligence period versus just straight up 0-day inspection? You're putting in
dude,
offers?
I'd say 90% are 0-day DD. Yeah.
Makes sense because honestly, that's where the deals are.
Correct. Yeah.
Most of the stuff.
And that's what, like, I know from a wholesaler, you know, from being a wholesaler, like, I know what makes it
a deal.
Offer sexy, right? It's like, yeah, this this buyer's offering me 160, but he's asking for a 3-day DD, right? And he has a proof of funds from a hard money lender, right? And I have this offer.
The challenges that are going to come with
correct. And I have this offer at 150, 0-day DD, close tomorrow, cash.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit. Okay, well,
I'll take that.
Like the 160, right? And so it just depends on where they're at with the deal, right? It's like, have they already been marketing out for a while? If they have, they're probably going to take the one, or they're going to counter the 150, right? Just things like that. And so, that is the new challenges. And that we can't delegate just yet. So we're learning that, like, we have to, there's different things that we have to now delegate to the team as a flipper than a wholesaler.
Yeah, for sure.
Wholesaler, I can delegate pricing and acquisitions,
so your roles and
all
everything
that.
have changed in the company.
Correct. I'm now an acquisitionist, basically. You know
what
what
are
I mean?
the team members focused on now? Because before, like you said, it's cold calling, you're prepping deals.
Well, So October, I completely turned off acquisitions.
Yeah, exactly.
So I really don't have acquisitions. I let go of my acquisition guy and let go of my VA's cold calling. So my dispo guy, still doing dispo, other wholesalers dispo, right? Or JVs, so other wholesalers, like he kind of does all of it.
Yeah.
Right. So like if a wholesaler will hit me up, or I'll put in an offer and like, because I don't flip everywhere. Yeah. Right. So it's like, hey, this one I'm probably not gonna flip. Like, I will buy it, but like,
what about wholesaling? Are you still just
wholesaling everywhere? Well, no. I guess what I mean by flipping is like, I won't flip every house.
No, of course
right?
not.
You know what I mean? Like
you've got to pick the cherries out of the
bunch.
I
mean, I'll close on every house, but you're probably not gonna like my offer on this product versus this product, right? Like if it's a house in Arlington of ARV of 250, I'm probably gonna be your best buyer. Like I want that. Right.
But if you send me something
correct,
1940s frame build,
exactly. It's like I'll still buy that.
And
it's just
you won't like my
correct. It's like my offer is gonna be $35,000.
Yeah.
Right. I'll buy a sight and see whatever, but it's $35,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Where like that deal, I can probably wholesale for like 60, 65
for sure.
Right. And so like I'll hit them with that. And so people want to JV with us.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of like Jacksonville is one of those markets where there's a lot of outside people doing deals in Jacksonville.
There are.
There really are a lot of
absolutely
people in,
like and so
different states all across the country.
And kind of like what we were talking about, like over the past 2 years, you could just lock up anything in any market, throw it in a Facebook group, and it'll sell.
Yeah,
that's not the case anymore. And so all these wholesalers that were outside of Jacksonville, crushing it in Jacksonville, are now sucking.
Yeah,
they can't dispo anything.
Yeah, all the deals you see on Facebook are trash.
Exactly.
I don't even really see any more deals on Facebook anymore.
Yeah, you don't see a lot.
Whenever I first got into like the Jacksonville,
there's 4 or 5 deals a day.
The Facebook groups, you would go on there and you'd scroll and you would see it like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Like
Deal,
which one should we look at? Which one do you want to go walk? So now you get one every 3 days maybe, and it's not even that good.
Exactly. And so what we're seeing is, and this is why I'm like part of a lot of groups and masterminds and all this stuff, is because like that's where I make my connections with other wholesalers that get the occasional deal here in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
They need somebody here.
They need somebody.
I'm their guy. I'll either buy it from you, or like I'll do free boots on the ground. Like, dude, we just went to this house yesterday. We didn't even get the deal. But I will do things for other wholesalers because it gets me the first opportunity, right? And I know that there's a cost to it, but if I do win the deal, then it's worth it.
And they'll remember that too, even if that first one doesn't go through. They'll be like, hey,
and so I'll do like free boots on the ground. So like just yesterday, man, we met the owner of a house for another wholesaler.
Okay.
We went out there with JSO. We drilled the locks out and changed the locks for them for the squatter, kicked the squatter out, put in an offer. We didn't get it. But like I'll do that all day. I'll do it 10 times over for any wholesaler because I just know if that's my marketing, you know, like that's my marketing now.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have marketing dollars. Like that's my marketing.
Your relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like, and I know how the wholesale game is. So it's like, dude, if you can sell that, go do it. Like call me when you need me.
Yeah, that makes sense though. That makes sense. And you know, honestly, I think no matter what the deal is, whether it's door knocking or whether it's acquisitions or no matter what, I feel like, you know, a major part of it is the research and the on the front side that makes a deal happen. Because I know like you were talking about how much research that you put into an offer before you even put it in front of somebody because you want to know that it's a bona fide offer. I mean, same for us when we're working on like a multifamily deal.
Oh, absolutely, dude.
The amount of research that you have to do prior, it's insane. But it makes the difference between you know, a good deal and something that, you know, like you said, you want to save face, especially when you're going out for bigger deals like that.
Correct.
If you're putting offers in front of people and they call you and they're like, hey, can you still move at this? And then you didn't analyze it correctly and you've got to, you know, come down on your price.
Exactly.
Like, dude, like,
yes, we don't want to do that ever. Yeah.
And that face-to-face too is such a like key thing in any type of sales too. Because like I've noticed like anytime I've ever been like in front of someone or it's like more, you know, it's more personable. It's so much more easier to get a deal than just like calling or, you know, on Instagram or Facebook or something. It's so.
Absolutely. And to that point, like you can call the tired landlord over the phone.
Yeah.
if you're going to talk to somebody about them losing their house and them being vulnerable, you're not going to get that over the phone.
No.
You know what I mean? You're going to get that at the kitchen table in the living room.
Yeah.
Like,
they're running from creditors. They're not checking their mail. They're not answering the bank on the phone. Yeah.
Correct. And so that has worked. And then so those houses will either like, because a lot of the houses that we'll close on, we don't always flip.
Yeah.
We'll just close on it and either resell it or flip it.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, you've got some potential rate hikes, or not rate hikes, rate decreases, coming in the next year. The Fed just paused. How do you see that translating into, your attack plan going into 2024?
So the plan is still to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
What I would say is,
do you foresee a kind of a flood of deals coming back into the market, kind of like a feeding frenzy like there was before?
Yes. Well, what I am hoping for is, and I don't want to replay what just happened, but I just know all these hedge funds are ready to turn back on. They're dying to turn back on. We check the fund stats all the time. That was one of the things that, Hayden is kind of like weird in that way, is like he needs to know everything about the funds. And so like he will track them. And we did this, right? And like, this is how we added value. Dude, we had like a whole little mini mastermind on just selling to funds. And we handpicked the people that were allowed to be in there. And we were just going ham on teaching them what fund was buying what. And then we would study not their buy box, because the buy box will tell you one thing, but you have to study their purchases. So we had maps on Google Sheets built out with every single purchase of every single fund. And it was like color coordinated. And we would know, hey, in this market, this fund's offering higher. Let's sell it to this fund. This fund, just stuff like that. And so we were like geeking out on that, man. And we were trying to build
that's interesting,
like a software where you would like input an address, input the zip code, and it was all in Excel or Google Sheets. And we were trying to build it into like something bigger, where you would put in like the property stats, bedrooms, baths, year built, zip code, and then it would say like, this fund's like you're 99% likely to sell it to this fund. So let's submit it to them. So that's what we were like working on. And we still track them, right? Because we want to see what's going on. And it's just like dog shit, right? It's like, dude, I'm buying more houses than like a fund that was like buying like crazy.
Yeah. Are these just like sales that you've seen from your like network that you were masterminding, or is this actual like data that you were pulling to build?
Yeah, this is data that we. No, we just pull, just like you would go and pull public
like
record, right? Yeah, PropStream. Yeah, we just look up. So we know the addresses of all the funds. Yeah. Right. So you look it up and you're like, oh, that's Open Door. Oh, that's OfferPad. Oh, this is Tricon. Oh, this is whatever.
KKR, whatever.
Correct. And so we search those addresses in PropStream, and it'll show everything that they own and everything that they buy. And so now we know, because they'll buy in different entities. Yeah. Of course. And so it's hard. We can't get all the data. We don't know everything, right? But what we can say is, I've sold to this entity before, so now I know. So it would happen, right? Like we'd sell a deal to a fund and be like, oh, they're using a new entity. Let's search up that entity, right? It's like, oh crap, with that entity, they bought like 100 in Jacksonville. And now it's like, dude, they're not buying anything.
Yeah.
Did you see that bill that got passed where they're trying to make it where hedge funds can't buy single family houses?
I saw that.
What do you think about that?
I mean,
I'm not sure if that'll go through.
I mean, obviously they try to pass so many things, but that's kind of a hot topic right now in a way.
Well, I think that there is some validity to that. I have a challenge with this of like being an entrepreneur and being, a capitalist to the freaking T, right?
To the core.
I had to ask though.
And you
that's
have
your main, like, you want to sell to them.
Correct.
So that,
and then you have that challenge. Correct. But then you have the challenge of like, what will that lead us to?
Yeah.
And we become a nation of renters, right? And so what I think is like, so I'm a little into like politics and stuff, right? So like, I think what will be good is not allowing the hedge funds to buy will be terrible, but like somebody like RFK, the guy who's running, right? He has proposed something because he has a big like whole like stick against Wall Street, specifically in the single family space, right? And so he has proposed, like, part of his thing if he wins being president is like, it's not stopping them from buying, but let's
cap them out maybe.
No, let's make it easier and cheaper for residential buyers, right? And so it's like, hey, if you're buying this, and you're a corporation, then you don't qualify for these special rates or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you are moving into your primary, then you like. I do feel like there's something.
How
there.
would that affect
you know what I
mom
mean?
and pop investors though, because they are still technically
Corporations.
Correct. Corporations. They're small LLCs. So
yeah, I think it's. I mean, I just feel like if we're going to freaking take all of the juice out of everything, like we are all getting the benefits of it, but what's going to happen to like our kids?
That's exactly
and
what
what's
I'm
going to
saying.
happen to the next generation? And what is the, like, what will happen to America if this keeps happening? Right. And it's like the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. And it's not our job to help the poor get richer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
It's a free
but
market
at the
society,
same time, we have to see, what does America look like 50 years from now, 100 years from now, if we keep sucking the juice out of everything, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm a capitalist. I want to,
We're here to make
you
money.
know, we're here to make money at the same time. But at the same time, like, there is
it's a weird line.
A weird
like,
line of like, if we go in this direction, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal right now, where it's like, all right, 5% are being bought from hedge funds every year. That's not that big of a deal. But 50 years from now, it's like, holy crap, they own 50% of single family homes.
Yeah.
And
like,
now that 3-2.
Now that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Now that's a big deal.
I think that was what, like, within the last year or so, it was 40% of transactions were bought by investors.
Yeah.
40%.
Yeah.
That's a huge statistic.
And so I think, like, there's like, and I feel like really when it comes to, like, you asked the question of like the mom and pop.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it just depends on like what is going to happen with that product once you're done buying it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, if you're a flipper, okay, all that means that you're buying the house. And so, like, if you are going to exit the house in the next year, then you qualify for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because now I think it's more of like, what's going to happen to all the real estate that they own once they own it?
Once they own it. Yeah.
The mom and pops, that's still going to circulate.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? The house is being bought by freaking BlackRock. They will never circulate the world again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Selling those,
Unless, which I think these corporations are too big to fail. You know what I mean? So I don't think it'll ever happen. But if they fail, it's not going back to the public. It's another Wall Street company that takes over those houses. You know what I mean? And so, like, that is, I think, what's more of the issue is what is going to happen with this inventory that they own.
Yeah.
You know? And when they own too much of it or majority of real estate, then that means the prices of the other pieces of real estate will be untouchable.
Yeah.
Because now the only houses that are exchanging hands are half of the real estate that's out there.
Yeah, that's
We already have an inventory problem. You know what I mean?
The supply issue
and
is
so, like, it is for me, I do think that there has to be something in that regard because I think it sucks right now, but once you have kids, it just changes the way you think about everything. Right? It changes the way, like, I want my son to be able to buy a house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, if 51 or more % of the single family houses are out there, we just have to study other countries also, right? Like, let's study other countries where this has happened.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No.
We don't want to go in that direction. We don't want to go to where every piece of real estate that's selling is $1 million plus because all the other pieces of real estate that aren't selling are owned by Wall Street.
Yeah. Right.
Like, that is legit in multiple European countries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, that's not good for America.
Not at all.
Right?
Exactly.
It's not good for the American dream. It's not good for what makes America America,
Agreed.
in my opinion. Right?
Yeah.
And so that is where I do feel like there has to be something, even though I am part of it, you know, like I'm okay with, hey dude, if I need to flip a house and pay an extra tax, it is what it is.
Right.
Right. Like, because if we don't, then what happens is we're all going to see the benefit and it's going to be awesome, you know, but in, 50 years from now, what's going to happen?
Like?
You know what I mean? Like now it's going to be like only apartment complexes is where people actually live because single family homes are because it's not just the single family homes to buy, right? Like the rental prices were shot up, not because mom and pop investors.
It was from Wall Street.
It was from Wall Street. Like I buy this house for $200 because I can get $1,500. Yeah, that house has been rented out for $1,150 for the past 5 years. You know, and like the next increase is $1,200, right? But Wall Street is like, no, we've studied the market. We can get $1,500, and so one house gets $1,500. Then the other person's like, I could get $1,500, and then it just keeps going. Now market rent is people can't rent,
right?
And it's because of the corporations owning the houses.
Yeah,
and so like, it's good for us when we're making the money.
For sure.
It's bad in 20 years from now when we can't flip houses.
Yeah,
like we're gonna do it to ourselves.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
100%.
And so that's like the longevity of what of to that question. Like that's how I think of that. Is like right now, dude, I think it's horrible, and I want this hedge. Like when you ask me, like what am I looking forward to with like rates dropping? Is dude, hedge funds coming back.
Yeah,
because at that point, now with me being a flipper, I will be able to sell to like I was only able to sell to 10 funds, right? Dude, I could sell to 30.
Yeah,
I was just not buying houses. I wasn't closing on them. I was selling to 10 because they were the only ones that are willing to do assignments or double close. And I was slowly creeping into buying houses to sell to other funds. We were some of the only people doing that, not as the flipper space, but as a wholesaler.
But like no renovations, just closing on it and reselling.
So basically, I'd put a house under contract, and then I'd have a fund go and inspect it. And the ones that were offering the best didn't buy from wholesalers. So we would go under contract with a 45-day close, and inside of those 45 days, I had to close the house, buy it. No, not even double close it. No, because I had to season title.
Yep.
They weren't allowing us to sell to them.
No double closes.
No double closes. So I had to close on it, season title for 3 weeks, then sell it to them.
Yeah.
And it was scary because I'm buying houses at retail, selling it over retail.
3 weeks
right?
later.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we were like at the tail end of all this, we were like going heavy with some funds that we were just now starting to make relationships with.
Yeah.
And so like that's what I'm excited about. But at the same time, we have the same like challenge of like what happens when they own and every market will be different, right? To like you go to freaking like I don't know, the middle of nowhere, like hedge funds aren't buying there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they're like 100% of the houses are still mom and pop owned and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But there's other markets where, like Jacksonville, I would say a lot of the Florida markets were like prime for hedge funds.
Major markets.
Yes,
yeah.
Major markets where like, dude, you go to Jacksonville, there's a lot of houses owned by a lot of hedge funds, right? And we will never see those houses again.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like I will sell a house to a hedge fund, that house is gone forever.
Well, I think you gave an incredible amount of insight.
Yeah, that
today.
was good.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate
Awesome.
you, coming on the show, breaking down, your story, your life, what you've learned in the process, what you've done before in the past, where you're going, your expectations for the future. So I think, a lot of people will have a lot to take away from that. And, I look forward to, doing business and being your friend for the foreseeable future.
Dude.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. For anybody that's interested in potentially, doing a deal with G, if you want to reach out to him, what's the best way?
I would say best way to reach out to me is through email. So it's my first name, Gonzalo, Gonzalo, at cashgeeks.com. Or you can go to cashgeeks.com and just fill out the forms there.
Yeah.
But the best is for me to just send it to my email. Again, this is all of my acquisitions, so I'm hands-on with buying houses.
Yeah. you guys heard it here first. He's hands-on. He'll deal with you directly. So if you have any deals in the Jacksonville, Florida area that you need to get moved, call the man, the myth, the legend. And thanks for coming on the show.
Dude, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
I love it.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.